This PSA was brought to you by the Peter G Show.
You may have second thoughts after the show.
Don't drink the Foster.
We're really talented. We should get Oscars.
Just pick out a car, for Christ's sake.
No, hi, my name is Peter.
Yeah, I want.
Here's
Yeah.
Madam Perry.
I need to get back in the genie bottle.
Louis from Pennsylvania. You're on.
He likes it.
It's showtime.
Peter G Show, Peter G Show, divorced dad, single dad, divorced dad, single dad, Peter G Show.
That's right. It's showtime. I'm Peter G, and this is the news. Not today. News on another day. Today we're going to get motivational, as I do every day. How the hell is everybody? Wednesday, right here, right now. Life with Peter G, the Peter G Show. Hope you're joining me. We'll give everybody a few minutes to catch up, catch on, and for those who catch the after live shows, it's all good as long as you show up. Rainy day here in Southern California, which is highly unusual. I promise you that, it doesn't rain a whole lot, but it's truly welcomed. I just like that it washes things down a little bit from all the dry dust. It's just different. And then people can't drive in the rain. And that's another problem. They just keep thinking they can do 90 miles an hour and causes a lot of havoc. But anyway, and on top of that, it's dark out early. So come on, pick your ass ache, I'm sure everybody loves this, the daylight savings time, as I love to bring up, until we finally get used to it and then change back over to the regular way. But here we are. Great show tonight. As I mentioned, motivational. Tonight, coming up in a few minutes, entrepreneur, mentor, motivational speaker, and author, Mr. Frankie Russo is going to be on this show. And he's got a book, Breaking Why. We're going to talk about it. We're going to get into it. I really want to hear his story more than anything, because I'm all about stories. That's what we do on this show. How he got to where he's at, what he's doing, and, was life always a bowl of cherries? Because you know me, life isn't always a bowl of cherries. Professional, non-bowl of cherry guy. But, I take those cherries and I turn them into cola. I like cherry cola. Although you shouldn't drink soda all the time. Everything in moderation. But he's going to be on the show. And he's got this book. And again, great story on how he's and why he's on this show tonight. There's always a why. So we're going to find out. But he's going to be on the show in just a few short minutes. I want to also remind you to make plans for next week. Next week, it's going to be a little different as we get into the holidays and things like that. I'm going to have Nicole on the show. Nicole is a young lady who I found years ago on Facebook. And you could just tell there's some issues going on. And I don't even remember. I'm going to try to find some old clips, just a couple of old clips. But it ended up that I actually knew her father, who was literally a sperm donor, and it messed her up. I hate to say daddy issues, but I kept following her and watching her. I've even talked to her mother. She's been on the show probably 2 times since 2017 or 18. And I'm still watching her progress. And I'm really I want to get her back on the show, because I've watched her go through some phases of identity to just trends and just grabbing straws. But she's coming of age now, and things are coming around, and I want to bring her back on the show, because I'm sure she's not the only one that's going through these things. And I think you'll find it interesting on how she's evolving. I do, because I don't want to see anybody, especially people that don't deserve it, going through things that they really shouldn't have to go through, but it happens. And that's why we bring them on this show, because at the end of the day, you're not alone. But she's going to be on Wednesday, November 22nd, next week, right here on the Peter G Show, Life with Peter G. Did I tell you every Wednesday, like clockwork, 6 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Central, and 9 p.m. on the East Coast? Or catch the broadcast after. It lives on forever. Speaking of which, lastly, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. They're giving me hell. They took down another show this week from the past, from 2 years ago. Another one. They're just going through my stuff, and if they don't like something, they're just, at least they're not ejecting me. So I'll give them that much, but it just kind of stinks. And it makes me crazy, but you know what? Keep on subscribing to the YouTube channel and or the other platforms. We're on 11 of them: Facebook's, LinkedIn's, your YouTube's, X, Spotify, Twitter. I don't know. You figure it out. Just Google Peter G Show. And again, for those of you who want to watch the show but are busy because you're driving in the car, I don't know. Maybe you're driving to Memphis or something. Who knows? But you can do the next best thing after the show's over. It goes straight to audio podcast, because you don't want to be watching TV while you're driving. That's kind of dangerous, although I know many do. But put an earbud in your ear. Just Google Peter G Show podcasts, 25 different platforms, from YouTube podcasts to Apple to Spotify, you name it. It's easy to find. So I appreciate you. I do. I know it takes dedication to listen to a long-term show or, long version, but you do, because we got great topics. And that's what I got to say about that. Just Google it, Peter G Show. Here we are. I want to bring Frankie on in just 2 more minutes. Because right now I want to make sure that we hear from my good friends over at Clean Star Products with their money-saving fuel additive. If you drive a lot, you need to save fuel. With their money-saving fuel additive, DX1 Driver, it makes sense to save money. I'll be right back.
Hello, I'm Tyrone Thompson of CleanStarProducts.com. This is DX1 Driver in the news, and here's what our friends have to say.
So I'm here to recap on the DX1 I've used. I put it in the oil and I put it in the gas. While I'm using it just for about 3 tanks. Cleaned everything out. I got every ounce of power back in my truck.
When Jared's truck was new, it had a lot of power. Then over time, it began to slow down. He got it all back with our DX1 Driver program.
Something you got to see for yourself. It's a great product. It's affordable. And it blows all the other additives and esters out of the water.
DX1 Driver is the finest oil in the world from a California environmental company. It goes into the fuel system and the oil. It's the only green grade product qualified for the carbon credits program, giving you better fuel mileage, lower emissions, and increased horsepower. So join the fuel savings revolution today. Go to CleanStarProducts.com/shop.
That's right, Clean Star Products with their money-saving fuel additive DX1 Driver. All I can tell you, people, is they have an actual product that works. On top of that, they're easy to talk to. You probably have questions. All you have to do is go to CleanStarProducts.com. There's a phone number there. You can call them, and they'll actually speak to you. I mean, nowadays, that's kind of unheard of. You're either having to text, chat, and all that kind of stuff. They will talk to you. On top of that, if you get your questions answered because you want to save money in fuel, and you decide to purchase from these people, you mention the Peter G Show, and you will get 5 bottles. That's right, 5 bottles for the price of 4. What did you say, Peter? Yes, I did. I said that. 5 bottles for the price of 4. Just mention the Peter G Show. Let them know I'm doing something, that you heard it on the show, all right? Because, again, they're good people. And most importantly, they know what I do, and they still sponsor me. So I'd say that's a plus for me. All right. All right. Enough of that. So, without further ado, the moment you've been waiting for. Oh, one thing first, because I know I'm going to get. Let's take a sip. Here's to everybody being here, period. It's not easy. Woo. Smooth. All right, now I'm good. I've been waiting for this. It's taken a year due to a bunch of circumstances, procrastination being one of them, but just getting lost in the mix. through a friend of a friend. We're going to talk about that too. But I found this guy a motivational speaker, and everybody needs a little lift. So a lot of people are lost, and this guy, from the moment we picked up the phone for our initial conversation, it only took 30 seconds before we were talking freely, like we've been talking for years, and that's a big gift, and it's not easy with some people. And so without further ado, here's what we're going to do. Ladies and gentlemen, motivational speaker and author, Mr. Frankie Russo.
How you doing, Peter?
Life is good. So long as I wake up, I'm doing. That's one thing I've made a promise to myself, but we're all good. I want to thank you. I want to thank you for taking the time. I know life is busy, but I really want to thank you for being accommodating. Let's put it that way, and making it here for tonight's show. I'm excited. I got a lot of questions for you.
Of course. Hey, it's my pleasure. I had never actually seen your opener, by the way. I was laughing my ass off the whole time, really leaning into that. Do you get a lot of dates with like the whole single dad promo going on?
No, but you know what? The whole thing was, no, I don't even try to work it. Honestly, I don't even care. but the thing
is, like an explosion. It's like single dad explosion, divorce.
Well, there's all kinds of, it's the circus. It's the circus. Look over here, look over there, just entertainment. But again, this show, I know you don't know, a whole lot, but this show really started out by the crap I went through as going through divorce. And I just felt like everything was melting. And so I just, and when I wrote the theme song, it just came, it just all came in there. And now they're looking at me and they're going, maybe we should pull the single dad, divorced dad thing out of the theme song. I'm going, no, because I'm still that guy. Because I'm still I'm not complaining about it. I mean, I made it. I survived. But a lot of people don't.
If you become not single, then you can get the editor involved. You know what I'm saying?
But, and again, I'll cross that bridge when I get to it. But that's it. Number one, it just came out of me, and that stupid little 3-chord 2x2 progression devised the whole show. When anybody questions me about this show, I go, listen, I got a theme song, so don't mess with me. You know what I mean?
Right.
I wanted to just carry it on a ghetto blaster and walk through the studio, but anyway, either way. But that's where we're at. But enough
the
about that.
Rocker in you.
Look, we all have pasts, right?
You can't walk away from the drummer rocker. I was a lead guitarist back in the day. We all do it till we starve to death and have to get a real job. Haircut and a real job.
Well, I wasn't starving to death, but it just changed. A lot of things change when children come into play, and I had to, again, if you're a family man, I got plenty of friends that are on the road that play with Elton John or whatever, and they had kids growing up, and you can facilitate it because you have the money to handle that, and you got a wife at home, and now you got FaceTimes and all that. Back in my early days in the 90s, we didn't have that. You were lucky if you figured out how to get a internet landline, in Japan to at least make a phone call, it was complicated, but things change and life changes, but this is how it carried in. But had it not been for that, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you and all that stuff. Again, I'm a firm believer in everything happens for a reason, and just as you can.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to argue it when you look at it over and over again. I think a lot of us get to that point where you can't really deny that things happen for a reason. I think a lot of people fight that, and it's a lot harder to think about that concept of everything happens for a reason when you're going through really shitty things. You know what I'm saying? When somebody dies, the first phone call you want is not, hey, by the way, don't sweat it. Everything happens for a reason. It's like, okay, thanks. Now shut the fuck up. So, it's interesting, but it's true. And even with trauma, which we're going to drop into a bit tonight, as far as like going through really hardships, as what doesn't kill you makes you stronger and all those things. And, I'm not going to say all the slogans, but some of these things are well-known things that we say because they're true. And once we get to a place where we can have gratitude for what has happened, and honor it and do something with it, at that point, it answers the question of why did this happen to me?
Sure. I mean, down the road, hindsight, but at the moment, everybody's having a connection. Here's what I want to do real quick, because I don't want to put which I always do. I put the cart before the horse or all that. Can you please, just brief synopsis, tell everybody who you are, what you do, and what you're currently doing and all that. And then I'm going to dig back even deeper, but let's just give everybody your version of, who is Frankie Russo and all of that. All right.
Okay, great. Yeah, Frankie Russo is a guy from Louisiana and born and raised here. Love Louisiana. Ended up being able to do some really cool stuff here. So I stayed. I'm also divorced and remarried. I'm a father of 6, blended. Of course, we have the Brady bunch, and we'll talk more about that in a bit. I'm a serial entrepreneur who has had a deep passion from a young age to help people. I grew up with running homeless shelters with my parents. Then as I got an adult, I had an aversion to that, and we can drop into that as well. But ended up getting into business and being an entrepreneur because I just didn't want to be poor. And so I ran from that for a long time. And it wasn't until about 9 or 10 years ago that I realized that I can't keep running from who I am and what my calling is. And that calling is to passionately help others. And I do that through 2 books that I've written. I also am in a program where I've helped hundreds of guys get sober. And there's a newer outlet since I sold my company. So I've been an entrepreneur. Like I said, I've been in multiple industries. The most successful was technology. I built a software company and then sold it to a public company a couple of years ago. And so that was an important moment for me to go even deeper into my calling, which is a keynote speaker, motivational speaker, thought leader. I'm working on a 3rd book now called Love You're Weird. And yeah, so there's the short story. We can get into any other aspect that you want, but that's Frankie Russo.
And we will. Well, okay, we had to start somewhere because I just want to start. I want with a basic, here we are now foundation. But is it safe to say that life wasn't always at this level? I mean,
No, yeah. Life was definitely not. So a couple of big turning points for me. The first one was 2008. Okay. 2008 was an interesting year for everyone because that was when the mortgage crisis hit. Well, the thing about it is that at the time, I was a drug addict, alcoholic, mortgage broker. So you can imagine how that year was for me.
Yeah.
Basically, everything went to shit. My family at the time fell apart. I had, addiction to drugs, alcohol, had been hiding a lot of that for years. And it all just kind of came to a head. I had been essentially, running this mortgage business. I was a kid. I was in my 20s and I just thought, oh, wow, this is so easy. Everything that I touch is going to turn to gold. And so I started all kinds of crazy companies, and it was a weird time because back then I didn't know any of this stuff, right? I was waiting tables in a restaurant and some lady was like, oh, I love your attitude. You should come sell mortgages. And I was like, what's a mortgage? And I was like, cool, see you tomorrow. So I mean, we just thought, oh, we're giving everybody the American dream. We're making tons of money. This is America. We had no idea that it had been deregulated by the government by design to do all these different things. And so we were just unknowing foot soldiers, buying sports cars until, of course, everything melted the earth down in 2008. And it was literally disappeared overnight. So I'd lost my business, a family, had to get sober. I mean, it was rough. I sold my car, sold everything, had to walk to work for a year while I rebuilt in a suit in the heat of Louisiana. So, I mean, there's a lot there, but that was the first time I really had to kind of grow up. I got lucky because it happened a little earlier for me. I was 27 when I got sober. So that has been a huge part of my success, by the way, is getting sober and then staying sober. But yeah, that was really a blow because I was devastated by that. I had made money and then lost it all. And it's hard to come back from that. And you really have to you got to do something different if you expect to come back from stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, the reason I asked that question is because for a lot of people coming on that don't know you, a lot of people that come on and don't know me, all they see is this.
That's right.
And I've had people that have commented. I mean, I've had people that would comment and they go, yeah, but you don't understand because you're rich. And it's like,
right.
and I get that. I get because perception is everything, but I don't, because I always, claim there's no rich here. I mean, I've been very blessed. I've survived this business and my musical career and things like that. But it's like I don't want to come on. I don't come on in a wife beater and and
right.
things like. I mean,
just because you wear a suit doesn't mean you're rich. For those of you who are tuning in.
Oh, true. Your biggest cons wear suits. You know what I mean? But I'm just doing it because I feel.
That's why I stopped wearing one.
Well, I again, this is now getting into winter wear, but but the thing is, I just feel I have some respect for my audience that I want to be able to it's like to respect, to get a little back, that I put a little effort into this whole thing. That
first of all, the only reason I made money in my 20s is because I was poor for 20 years growing up and wanted to make money. I didn't want to be poor anymore. It created all this tension and stress and so but the first time I tried to do it, I made money for a little while, like a season, and then it all melted down. So I did it the wrong way for the wrong reasons. Okay. Now over the last 15 years, I've done things very differently. And the fact is, I mean, I didn't get any help from anyone. I started with, 2 shovels in the dirt every time I've started anything. So, I mean, the real story isn't about money anyway. I mean, let's face it. Now, sometimes it is easier to say money doesn't make you happy when you've had it and then you're not happy. You kind of have to get it first, because nobody was going to tell me and me listen that, you don't need to make money to be happy. I was like, yeah, whatever. Like, let me just see if you're right, because I'm going to find out on my own. And turns out it doesn't make you happy.
Well, I know a lot of really wealthy people that are miserable,
Sure.
but I know a lot of really wealthy people that know how to handle things, and it does help, make things easier if you got, your head on straight. That's
right.
all.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
But
yeah, to that point, everybody has their burden and their hurt and their pain, and they wear it differently,
Right.
And so no one really knows when you're looking at social media, looking at media, looking at all the stuff out there, you don't really know the truth in most cases, and that's something I've had to learn to get more and more vulnerable, even in settings like this, where like, I'll share with you and anyone in the world, anything. And that's a very freeing thing in and of itself, is the willingness to be vulnerable and be okay if people don't like you or judge you. And some days that can be harder, and you just got to turn the comments off and live your life.
Yeah. If you're in this business, I mean, you either got to take it or don't pay any attention to it, and or both, because you're going to get, nothing. You can't please everybody.
No, you cannot make an impact in this world. You cannot make an impact with your calling without someone not liking you. That's just the way it is. I mean, and you can look at some of the historical figures, all those historical figures, from like JFK, Martin Luther King, Jesus, whoever you want to look at, like, look what happened to them.
Yeah. 2,000 years.
They had some bad comments.
Exactly. Speaking of being liked, real quick, Tiffany says she's so excited to hear the show tonight.
Yeah.
You got a fan club going on over here. Who else we got? We got Carrie. Hey, Frankie Russo.
There
this
he is.
Carrie.
A shout out.
There you go. And I'm not sure what this means, but
that's it. That's Logan.
1, 2, 3. What's that mean? Is that like?
So I had this video that came out, and Logan and I were actually joking about it, because when he heard my content, it was a lot of what I've learned, and a lot of the content that I use is stuff I've learned from the program. And I'm not allowed to say which program it is, but there's a program, and I've learned a lot of spiritual, amazing things from it. And so he and I met up one day, and he was just laughing his ass off. Logan and I actually went to treatment together. So Yes, he's still around doing it. 1, 2, 3, Logan.
1, 2, 3. There you go. One last one. I got a question for you. Catherine says, "As it should be."
Yeah.
So there's a lot of insider information right here that
That's it.
that-
It's exactly
yeah.
as it should be, Peter.
Before we, so again, I always take the first 15 minutes to like just it's all about the setup, because it's all about how we arrived here to share your story and things like that. And a little over a year ago, I flew to a very, really beyond super close friend of mine's daughter's wedding. And while we were there, I sat at, how you get seated at certain tables, like you're kind of like assigned seating. It's not just go wherever you want. And I was sitting at a table and I met a guy there from Louisiana, and we started talking. And it was in the course of 2 days, because I went to the after rehearsal dinner or whatever they call it. And then I went to the wedding, so I saw them both days. And he ended up being from Louisiana, and we, again, easy to talk to. I'm not that difficult to talk to, and neither was he. And he started talking about things, and come to find out, he kept saying, what do you do? What do you do? And he goes, he goes, I got this guy. He goes, he'd be great for your show. He'd be really good for you. Now, I get that once in a while, or I get it here or there, but does anything ever happen of it? And, sometimes yes, sometimes no.
Sure.
But we remained in touch because he was really close with the family that I'm very close with. They're not, I don't think they're blood related, but they might as well be. It's that close. Yeah. And he kept saying through time, and then I fly back to LA, and life goes on, but we friend each other through Facebooks or this and that, and then an occasional note, hey man, how you doing? And he goes, you really need to get that friend, my friend on, Frankie Russo. He'd be great. Time went on. 6 months went on. I get sidetracked, man. I got everybody yanking on me. But he thinks so highly of you, and because he, I guess, was in recovery too. And it was just nothing. Finally, I did a show a few months ago on a girl that did 30 years of alcoholism, and he chimed in again, and he says, man, you really need to get my friend on that show. He's really good. And here we are. I've said, I'm not going to let this guy down, because it was just scheduling and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah, sure.
It happens. And we actually came together, because I made several attempts at trying to figure out how to get a phone number on you, and then got sidetracked. Well, here we are. And you're here because of Richard, because he's the one put the, I guess, so he booked.
Absolutely. Yeah. Look, Richard is somebody that I've gotten to have an amazing relationship with now, and we met because he's like me, drug addict, alcoholic, and I ended up becoming a sponsor, and that's why he had so much to say. And that's an interesting thing to double click on here, Peter, is that he didn't ask me to come on the show because he read my book and it was so good, or he saw me do a speech or something like that. It was because his life has changed as a result of volunteer exercise of helping others. And he's one of many, many people that I've come to have these deep relationships with and help transform their lives out of addiction. And I'm not by any means the power at B that creates these things, but I will tell you that the power at B does use us in a unique way. And I think that is the most greatest experience we can even have on this earth. And it's become my new drug, to be honest. I talk about it like the limitless drug, because once the real beauty of getting sober is not getting sober, it's staying sober or staying clean. And one of the things that so many people unfortunately miss, I've had 5 of the guys I've worked with die, and that's a fairly conservative number, because it's just gotten to a point where it's really life or death, and you never know when it's going to hit. And so for me, I've really just had to go all in, if you will, on this concept of the only way you stay sober, the only way that you transform, is if you start as quickly as possible taking action on helping the next person. That's how you keep what you have, whatever it is. If you want to keep what you have, if that's happiness, joy, freedom, even if it's money, you want to keep that, like, keep being generous, keep giving stuff away, and especially your energy, especially your time. And I'm telling you that it makes a difference. And then he started doing the same thing. So he helps guys. And then the guys he helps guys. And that right there that's how it happens. And that's something nobody can take away from you if you continue to do that, because you're not doing it for the normal reasons. You're not doing it for money or power or notoriety or sex. None of the reasons that usually motivate us to do stuff to help people is not there. And so the only way you get paid is in essentially this like spiritual coin. And for those of you listening, spiritual coin is not an actual Bitcoin. I had one guy that I worked with. He was like, man, I'm really worried that you're like trying to profit off this whole like getting sober thing, that you've created a cryptocurrency. I'm like, dude, I was just making it as an analogy. It's a spiritual coin. There's not actually a crypto coin called spiritual coin, but it could be a cool idea, but it's not the same coin.
I'm going to write that down. Okay.
Yeah, write that down. See if you can find spiritual coin. It's probably out there.
Look, addiction, we all know. I mean, well, not we all know, but you most know how gripping and how, addiction is a bitch. I mean, there's a reason why people die. I had a pastor from Baltimore on last week who takes care of the homeless and they're drug addicts. And he just, he says, like, just when the one is he's gonna go into rehab, we're getting him the night before, they're going for that. Just let me get high one more time. And that's it. It took them out. It's sad.
Yeah. And see, I was around a lot of that because, for growing up, my parents we actually lived in Pittsburgh for some time. And then we started a shelter in Louisiana. But we were always around that. I didn't even understand it as much as I did. Once I got sober, I realized what was a lot of the stuff that I had seen as a kid that I didn't even realize. Because I always thought, like a lot of people, a drug addict or an alcoholic is this guy underneath the bridge, or he's the smelly homeless person at our shelter. That's an alcoholic. And it's like, no, not really. The best thing that helped me was realizing that people that look like me or talk like me or whatever, that they're alcoholics. I'm like, what the hell is this? And it's important for people to know that.
Our Congress, right? Everybody, they're working alcoholics, but they're working functional. How do you call it?
And look, if you can function, let me tell you something, Peter. If I could function as an alcoholic and drug addict, I assure you I would not be sober. Like most people are like, man, I don't know why they do all those drugs or why they do that. It's like, well, try them. And you'll probably figure that out. I mean, the problem with these drugs is that they're fucking great, until they're not, you know. And once they're not, you're so powerless over it. And the most wildest part about it is that like all the other medicine and doctors and all these other professions have tried to solve this issue. And it turns out nothing is more powerful than just another alcoholic or drug addict helping the next person. Like that's the only way people stay sober. I mean, and you have to go through some things and do some things, for before you can do that. But the idea is like, look, get well so that you can do something with it. And I think what happens to a lot of people, Peter, is that you have a situation where, anybody that gets sober, I don't care how you're doing it, right? They got all kinds of programs now to get sober, right? And so, however you get sober, that's great. And you're going to have a better life to an extent, no matter what, just from being dry or clean. And what happens is that a lot of people, they get sober and their life does get better. I say that all the time. One of the biggest problems with getting sober is that life gets better. And see what happens when life gets better. The one thing that got us sober in the first place or clean was desperation. And so when life gets more comfortable, we aren't as desperate. And again, that's not a bad thing. It's great. Who wants to be desperate all the time or always freaking clawing and surviving and struggling? You don't want to live like that. And nor should you have to. However, the fact is that once we get comfortable, if I don't turn around and do something with that, and I'm not talking about donating money. I think a lot of people, I thought that I was just going to get out of this deal with my parents, with being inner city homeless mission and stuff like that. And I was just going to make money, and I was going to be the guy that donated, because we grew up at the mercy of donations, you know? And so that I thought, oh, that's what I'm going to be. And like, no, I tried that for a while, and that went up in flames. And there's nothing more powerful than helping somebody who is less than us one-on-one ourselves, you know, that you don't outsource it, you know?
Hands on. Look, you can throw money at a lot of things. I know parents that were wealthy and they 16 years old, buy a brand new car. They smash the car. They get pissed off for 2 weeks. 2 weeks later, they get a brand new car. And those kids, I tell my daughter this until she's sick of hearing it, but she understands. They grew up with no skills because they were loved so much that they gave money but not the time.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
That's right. And that is one of the hardest things. And my wife and I really have changed the way that we approach this with our kids. Like, you know, what I found is I went through a lot of life where it wasn't hard not to give people money because I didn't have any. You know what I'm saying? So for a long time, that was really easy. When you start to have some money, it becomes complicated, because then it's like, well, should I just always say yes? And then you go through this whole new thing. And it's, especially with children, it's like, just because you can does not mean you should.
Right.
And because I don't want them to have, I don't have the percentages, but the vast majority of people that create something great, like a company or an organization or a mission or whatever, those people almost always came from, quote, nothing. Right. And most of us didn't come from nothing, but we came from not much. Like I try not to offend my parents when I say I came from nothing, you know, because I used to say that all the time. And my older brother kind of called me out. He's like, well, I mean, we had food, and it kind of really made me realize, okay, yeah, I didn't come from nothing, but we did not have money to do the things that the other kids did. So I grew up with that complex and kind of became an adult. And I was like, I don't ever want to be poor again. I thought that was the solution. Just don't be poor. And I think there's a lot of people that still think that.
I get that. But I also, you know, every time I see the struggles of people and things, you always get that, well, the man complains, you know, about not having any shoes, says the guy with no feet. One of those, like, it could always be worse.
Oh my God.
And
first of all, every single person in America, period, is better off than the vast majority of the rest of the world. I mean, if you're homeless in America, you're doing better than a lot of the rest of the world. Straight up.
Yeah, no, I get that. You know, again, lots of questions. I want to know how you launched into going into motivational speaking. I mean, you know, so you went from being sponsors and things like that, but you just can't dart out there and go into motivational speaking.
No, absolutely not. So what happened for me is I started to become successful in the business world. I built 2 different companies that were on Inc. 5000, Inc. 500, which is Inc. Magazine's fastest growing companies in America. We did that for 8 years. And simultaneously, in the background of all that, I'm doing all of this other stuff, right? The spiritual work around staying sober and all that. And it's actually it wasn't directly related to it, but it was very related to how I was able to deal with stress, fear, anxiety, and the things that naturally come from trying to do something that doesn't exist, create something that doesn't exist, be an entrepreneur. There's a lot of people out there listening that I know are entrepreneurs, and so they know exactly what I'm talking about, right? That journey, that grind, it can take a real toll on you. And it did for me in a lot of different ways. And so the book became my outlet. So in 2014, I started writing my first book. It was called The Art of Why. And I ended up hiring a couple of ghostwriters to help me with that because I really didn't even know where to start. So I was already speaking before that. So my speaking originally started from the stage in like 2009, 2010, as I was coming back into rebuilding a new type of business. Yeah, but it was mostly business talks, you know. It was, and I didn't get into doing the motivational stuff until about 2014 when I started working on The Art of Why, which was a book about trying to help share what I've learned in getting sober and going through what I had lived through, and share that with everyday people that maybe don't have access to the same type of knowledge and experience that I had got to go through. And it was a lot less about business and a lot more about what I went through personally.
Look, I think that's really important as to sharing the story and why. And because for some reason, not everybody, but I do, especially doing this show. This show started watching people go through issues. My parent just died. Showing me what you eat on Facebook. It all started with Facebook and me watching people go through life. Yeah. And they all think, why me? Why me? And by sharing this, it's like, it's not just you, but you just so fixated because it's your life. It's crumbling down.
Why did my life fall apart and I hit bottom and have to get sober 15 years ago so that I could do what I'm doing now? I mean, I couldn't do what I'm doing now. I wouldn't have the experience to even share and give to the people that I help. I wouldn't have that if I hadn't gone through pain. I mean, all the things that I've done that are, quote, successful or awards or any of that kind of crap, I've never learned a single thing from that. Not one friggin' thing. Yeah. What I have learned from very, very clearly, and any clarity I've had in this life, has come from pain. You don't get to a place of clarity where you are now asked to be a thought leader, or you're writing books and things like that to share with the world. Nobody really gets there without having pain. That's the thing that teaches us. But the people that come out of it and do something with it, okay, which is what I've tried to do, and I've now doubled down on that over the last couple of years. Because look, at the end of the day, the answer to the question of why is this happening to me, okay, can be answered two ways, right? The one way, which is the majority of people, the way that they answer is that it's happening to me because, and then they start listing off all the things everyone did to them, with probably God or Buddha or somebody at the top of the list, and then my mom, then my dad, and then the boss, and just this long list of why did this happen to me, right? And so we can live our life like that, and a lot of people do. Then there's the other road. The other road is to not even try to answer that question, at least not when you're going through it. You're not going to be able to answer that question when you're going through it. So just stop trying, stop blaming, just honor it. It's happening. Okay. This person died. I have cancer. I'm a drug addict. I've lost my job. I've gotten divorced. My kids hate me. Whatever it is, I've got a deathly illness. Whatever it is that is going on that we're plagued with, or that's bearing down on us, that is really not for us to understand in that moment. What we are to understand is that we just honor it and don't lie about it. So a huge part of my journey, Peter, has just been about the fact that, like, my religion has become honesty. I used to have all these, concepts of good and bad, and right and wrong, and evil and good, and all this stuff. And it's so friggin' subjective. It wasn't until later in life that I realized, like, there's only one true north for us. And that's being honest, and obviously not lying to you, Peter, but more not lying to myself.
Look, the biggest thing about being truthful and not lying to me is, especially in life, the more people you talk to, being in a business like this, if I start lying about things and keep on, I can't keep track of my lies. Yeah. And with video and nowadays and all this, and I learned, and I wasn't ever that guy anyway. I didn't have to fill you with a bunch of baloney. You take me as I am. I tell people, what you see here.
You led with that, and that works. Once you get to a point where you're willing to lead with that,
right? But the drugs will change you. There's no doubt drugs and alcohol will change you. I mean, look, again, coming out of my divorce, my life was pretty hunky-dory throughout my whole life. I mean, it was a struggle, but in my musical career, I was happy. And I, but the divorce, I see why people will drink themselves under the table. You're going through so much stuff, and you're taking the edge off, and the edge starts to become every night Thank God I don't think I really have an addictive personality, but you just tend to gravitate to it. And if you do have an addictive personality, you're toast.
Yeah. Well, I mean, for me, it was one of those things where, like, they say one's too many, 1,000's not enough. And so I've always had, I always, no matter what it is, I have an addictive personality. But here's the thing. When you stop fucking around with drugs and alcohol and you start to get to a point where you are doing things for the right reasons and you get addicted to something like helping others, okay, or loving people, like that's an addiction you can't overdose on. But if you're a drug addict, that will never change. Drug addict alcoholics you will always be addictive. You'll always have addiction. You'll have that mindset, and that's not a bad thing. In fact, it's in my mind, one of the main reasons I was able to become successful, but only because I did something with that energy. If you don't replace that with something else, right? That addiction, that obsession with something else, get obsessed about something else, you will not make it, and you will default back to the self-medication because the pain is not great. And you have, because here's the thing, Peter, again, like I said, getting sober is one thing. Staying sober is a different thing. You see, because the fact is that if I don't do something different, I'm not going to be able to sustain the pain that's not from drugs and alcohol. Drugs and alcohol are actually the solution. Okay. They're the solution, right? They're taking the edge off, like you said. And that's true. They're great. And to be honest, if you can manage it, look, go to town. Go to town. Yeah. I don't judge people that can drink and do drugs. I mean, I'm a little jealous, but no, go to town. If it's working for you, knock it out. But here's the thing. There's something else when you get to that point where you're an addict that you're trying to replace or cover up. And most of the time it's unconscious. We don't even know we're doing it. It's not like we're drinking alcohol or, doing drugs and thinking, this is because I hate my dad, or because of what my mom did to me growing up. That's not what you're thinking, but that's what's happening. And so yeah. So, I mean, when you actually get healthy and you start to get honest about these things, you can then start to get healing. And then once you get that, you can then use it for something, should you choose to use it. And that's how you stay getting the good stuff. I mean, because anytime you get out of hell, it's going to feel great. If you're in hell and you get out, it feels fucking great. The key is staying out of hell.
I think it's a lot easier for some people. Just can't let go. I mean, they just thrive on it. They harp on it. They carry it. I carry things for a long time, but not to that extent. I let little bother me, and it's always in my head.
But you've had to learn that. You've had to learn that over time, right?
Yeah.
To let stuff go like that.
I'm still learning every day. But the thing was, so you do the motivation. I mean, because for some reason we keep getting sucked right back into the core of like why we're here. And I want to talk about the stuff you're doing now, but this is really where the heart is on like how it all begins, because you do motivation.
By the way, Peter, this is what I'm doing now.
Right. Well, okay, exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
This is what
right
I'm doing.
now.
Yes.
Me too.
What I'm doing. This is it. This is what I'm doing now. That's how this works. Yeah. There's not like a punchline. That is the punchline.
Well, the thing, because look, you've gotten into motivational speaking, and I don't, I want to ask you on who you're doing it for, but see, to me, it's like you're doing the positive now, and this was my way of doing the positive because, we're sharing. But who are you doing the motivational speaking for? For people like personally, like personal growth, or for corporations and things like I've been to those.
A great question. Okay, so the right now, my main focus is helping organizations, companies. I speak at conferences, things like that. As far as the motivational speaking, and I'll tell you why. I get so much of my fulfillment and scratch the part of my calling that I really need to on the personal level. I mean, I have as much opportunity on that personal level to do in the drugs and alcohol community that I usually, like, the personal stuff is there, and I've dedicated a little more of like the the books and the speeches that I do now to quote unquote the conference or the corporation, right? But here's the thing: who is a corporation? Who is an organization? An organization is just the sum total of the people in it, and so essentially, the people that are hiring me, they're companies and it's conferences and associations. That's who hires me. That'll actually pay you to speak. Because you can speak anywhere. You can speak on the side of the street, and nobody's going to pay you.
I do. Nobody either.
Yeah. So is it personal? Is it business? Yes, is the answer.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
is the answer. But the people hiring me are those people, but my gift is to their people.
Right. You make better people have a better business.
Absolutely. I mean, so just to give you an example, like when I went through my divorce, which was 6 years ago, and what happened was I realized, and by the way, at this point, Peter, I go through my divorce, I'm 9 years sober, which is like, wow, that's crazy, right? And that divorce process, that 6-month period emotionally was worse than getting sober. It was so grueling and for a lot of reasons, but and we can double click on that in another show, but I will tell you this, through that process, what I realized was that I had gotten so far away from who I really am during that first marriage. And I don't blame, the first wife. I don't blame any of that. Here's the thing. I realized that I was the one who had gone so long being willing to be dishonest about who I really was. And so what did I do? What most people do, you compartmentalize your life. And so you're one thing at home, and you're one thing at the office, and you're one thing, on the field, and you're before you know it, you're 9 different people. That's the dishonesty I'm talking about. I'm talking about the denial, the denial of it. And the answer is being willing to get to a point where I no longer lived for other people's pretense. And I was, for a lot of my life, doing that. I was really doing that. And so as I was going through it, I did some work and I went to this one place called Onsite, which is an incredible experience if anyone ever gets to go. And that place, it was off the grid for a week. And most of it was this work around the inner child. Okay. So my inner child, my 5-year-old self, and I hadn't really paid much attention to that in a long time. And what I realized was that was because when I was 5, I wanted to be a lot of stuff that like other kids thought was weird, because I wanted to be an astronaut and a TV preacher and a inventor. And I would try to build stuff in a lab, which was actually my parents' basement, but I called it a lab. And, and then I wanted to be a cowboy too. So, the other kids were like, can we just listen to music or like kick a soccer ball or something? And so I got a lot of this like negative, like feedback as a young age from other people, bullying, whatever you want to call it. And so I stopped being that kid because he was weird. And so, you and I don't know if we've talked about it, but my next book is called Love Your Weird, because I'm kind of graduating from the why books. I've got enough of those, and weird, loving your weird, I think is a incredibly important message for everyone right now. And not the least of which are my own kids, who are going to go through the same shame and guilt and rejection that we all go through sometimes when we put ourselves out there. But I believe that loving your weird is actually the secret unlock for a lot of things, even in a corporation or an organization. So I actually go in, I will talk to the people about loving their weird as an unlock for innovation. Like one of the things that made me really successful on the business front was that I created a software product that was very valuable, and we built that with a team and all this fun stuff. But that came from me loving my weird and really going back to like, what if I did invent something? Because I had all these different businesses, but I finally was like, I'm going to invent something. And I did. And it was the most successful thing I did in business. Basically the same idea I had when I was 5. Loving your weird is about loving 5-year-old Peter, right?
Well,
or 5-year-old Frankie, whatever you were into. And a lot of people I talk to, they haven't even thought about that in decades.
I think because kids are kids, my father used to say every week something new, which was the one thing I disagreed with my old man, because I always knew I wanted to play drums. I told you this the other day when we spoke.
See?
And I always knew. I was always that guy that wanted. I knew it from that 5 years old. On my mother's floor kitchen with the pots and pans upside down, banging on. God bless my parents for putting up all my noise and things like that. But they didn't discourage me. But they probably wanted me to be a doctor or a lawyer or something like that. But you know what?
My parents were like that too. I think that you and I are blessed to have parents that were willing to let us be weird. Yeah. Not everybody had those parents. And that's something else, Peter, that I want to honor is that, for those people that are watching this and this idea of thinking about our 5-year-old self, I just want to honor the fact that like, it took me a lot of work and like hundreds of hours of therapy to get to a point where I could be this comfortable talking about this. Right. So yeah. And let me tell you why. I didn't even have nearly the level of trauma that a lot of people that I've worked with have, and a lot of people that are listening. Some of the stuff that happens to us as kids, that's why we don't remember what we were like when we were 5, because we don't want to, because it's too painful. And but the healing of that, so you can get back to that. I believe that 5 years old is so important because it's before people did things to us, before people told us that we were weird, before people told us to be different. And that level of imagination, authenticity, and generosity that's locked inside that 5-year-old, Peter, that's what I do now. That's what I do is I help people unlock that in a setting that no one expects.
I firmly believe to let children be children as long as they can. It's hard in this day and age. I kept up with the Santa thing till my daughter was 13 or so, and she already knew.
I'm hoping my kids aren't watching because they don't. Most of my kids, at least 4 out of the 6, don't know that Santa's not real yet. So.
But the thing was, she started pacifying me and like just not letting me know, Dad, I know, already. But the joy, man, when they get up and like saw this, stuff or whatever, everything being a kid. I just let them be a kid, man. Life is such a bitch nowadays. Let a kid be a kid.
But think about this. Let's just look in the mirror. Let Peter be a kid. Let Frankie be a kid. Like I know Peter's a kid. I saw your intro. Yeah. You were definitely still. Nobody loves their weird quite like Peter, but that's the beautiful thing is and look, you're having fun with it. You're owning it, and like that's what it's about. It's each one of us has locked inside of us. If we just go back and look, exactly the blueprint. So when people are stuck or they're feeling like they don't know where to go in life, they don't know they're not passionate anymore. They're like, take a beat and just go back to what you were into before you had all these rules. Have to make money, have to be this, have to be that, have to look this way. This is bad, this is good. We have to make sure that we set our own selves free. So because when we start doing the work, the first thing you think is, I gotta make sure that I let my kid be a kid. It's like, no, why don't you make sure you let you be a kid?
Like I said, I get it because not everybody's like that. A lot of people have to give up their dreams and they just get so they're conforming to everything, and I'm not that way. And I don't know, you'd have to ask my daughter, I guess, but I'm pretty much, again, what you see is what you get. But
I believe
you have it's no complaints.
There's nothing wrong with that besides the fact that like there's going to be people that hate you, but that goes back to the Martin Luther King and JFK and John Lennon.
Well, and again, it's this is if I told you that this 1 hour plus is the easiest part of my entire week, would you believe me?
Would I? Yeah, I would. I don't know if it's the easiest, but I think it's probably one of the most fulfilling parts.
Well, because it took all week to get to this point.
Yes, this is the fun part. Exactly. And it's important. I love that you keep double clicking on that, Peter, because the fact is there's so much work that goes into the one little piece you see. and it's so easy to forget that when you're on the outside watching it and you're like, man, how do I ever get there? It's like, well, it's a lot of work.
It's a lot.
But it's worth it if it's something that you love and it's something that you're passionate about. It's worth it.
Well, that's the thing. That's why I truly believe people need to do something they believe in to be happy, because you will get, if it's your own baby, it's a whole lot better to do something that you're than be going and hating your life, 9 to 5ing. Find something, even if you're 9 to 5, that you enjoy. Because
I'm going to tell you, one of the challenges for me, and I know we're bumping up on time, but I will tell you this one thing that was super important for me And that was, that you don't have to quit your job and then go start something big or move to another country. A lot of people think that it's either one or the other. I thought that for a long time. I thought I either needed to make money or be a missionary in Africa or something. It's like those were my two options. It's like, dude, there's a lot in between, and there's ways to unlock unlock that today, wherever we are, without changing our job, without changing our relationship. Now, look, sometimes you do, but definitely not always. And that's not the mission. The fact is that this is an inside job. It has so little to do. Most people think like, oh, weird, that's how we look and smell, and like, it's odd. The truth is, Peter, when weird was originally coined as a word, I found this out after I came up with the love your weird concept, because I was like, I'm doing this. I'm loving my weird, which was an incredible breakthrough. I found out that the word weird used to be spelled different. It was W-Y-R-D. But it wasn't just spelled different. It actually had a completely different meaning. Weird when weird first came out, it didn't become the weird we know until Shakespeare did like the Weird Sisters. Okay. The original word weird meant the power to influence your fate, destiny, and supernatural qualities. Think about that for a minute. When you think about loving your weird, the supernatural qualities is exactly what we saw when we were 5. That's what we saw. Yeah. That's why we could play make believe before it started getting smashed.
Yeah. Your brain is, you don't have a whole lot of stuff holding you back. You just feel how you feel as a kid. You don't have
your heart and your brain at 5 years old are way closer together than as an adult.
That's why I'm keeping it that way.
Yeah.
But okay. I want to get into your book. Okay. I want to get into this because we're right in time, but I call the time here. If you're willing to stay, I'm willing to stay.
Yeah, I can go a little longer. I promised my wife that I would hang out with her and the kids after.
No, I get that, and I again thank her for me. But I'm, the way I see it is like, when's the next time I'll get you? But you got this book called Breaking Why, right?
That's it.
And there's just a couple of things. I mean, we were just talking about believe and commit. Things like that. I mean, it takes a lot of guts, especially if you're working. Yeah. You come home. I was working. After my divorce, I was working. I'd have to come home after a 12-hour day between travel and back and forth. And then I'd be working until 1 or 2 in the morning, getting up at 5 in the morning, get my daughter ready to school, and then start all over again.
That's right.
Committing. How do you do it? I mean, why you got to get off your butt? What makes people to finally commit?
Yeah. Look, at the end of the day, committing comes from being motivated enough to commit. So you just jumped to the third step, by the way. The first step is asking yourself why you're here, and starting to dig into like, okay, why am I here? What is it that I was sent to this planet to do?
That's deep. Yeah,
I know it is. But trust me, you're not going to commit till you can answer that. Now, for you to commit, what was the thing you said you committed to? Was it about your kid?
Oh yeah. I mean, I changed my whole life around because
that's right. Okay. So you committed to a new life. Okay. But that's because you knew why. You had a purpose, and the purpose had become your child, which is most of us as parents is obviously our purpose. It's not our only purpose though. Thank God, but I will tell you this, at the end of the day, you have to figure that out first. Why am I here? Okay. Whether that's in this room or that's on the planet. Once you figure that out, then you can have a go at step 2, which you didn't mention, which was count the cost. Okay. Now counting the cost in the 10 steps is so important, because if the cost is too great, it's more greater than the motivation and the why, then your why is not big enough. And you need to go back to 1. Once you get to the point where your why is more important to you than the cost, that's when you can move to 3. And that at that point, you have the motivation to commit and believe that you can do it. And those are the first 3 steps that are so important in this. But if you don't have that motivation from the first step, that you're not going to commit.
I think there's a lot of people that every day come up with some new idea, some great idea, but never get off the couch,
Of course.
And to me, if I get, and it doesn't happen very often, but this is, again, I'm just having to use myself as an example, because that's mostly what I know, what makes me go. But if it comes from within my gut, there's very few times in my life when it came from deep down. I'm going for it, whether it works or not, I'm going for it. And that's how I commit. And, and go, if I make up my mind to do this, I'm either going all in or not starting at all. No half-ass. I mean,
absolutely. Well, and because that's how you do it, but that also can keep us from starting. So the problem with being no half-ass is that a lot of times we don't start. That's why step 4, right after you commit and believe, I put a whole chapter just for starting. Did you notice that one?
It took me 4 years to get this show off the ground because my ideas were bigger than my budget. And finally, thank God for friends. A couple of friends go, Peter, I've been hearing this for 4 years.
Yeah, just make a show.
Back it down and do something, because I came from a bigger,
You wanted it to be syndicated out the gates, and it just so happens that we're in a time where like syndications is struggling as much as you might be, So it's a tough time for all that. And so the playing field for someone like you who's willing to be passionate and just get out there and start, like you can broadcast to the entire world on 11 different channels. Like that wasn't a thing before. And so there you have it, and it might not be as popular as Fox News or things like that or CNBC, but it's an important message. And you can never forget that, like, it's not about the numbers right now. Obviously your sponsors going to need some numbers, but it's not really about the numbers per se as it is about impacting lives, and doing something great. And I know you're doing something great because quite frankly, that's why YouTube is taking your shows down.
I just believe in the build it and they will come. I did it the hard way.
I do too.
But again, with the restart, a lot of people, same thing happened with me. I completely dead stopped everything that I've done my entire life. And that's not easy, changing horses in the middle of the stream, so to speak, because of the choices you make in life. So, it's not easy. And I know why people, sometimes poop out. I mean, they don't know what they're getting into and don't know how to get into it.
Yeah. No, I'm with you, man. Look, at the end of the day, if I was going to say, like, for somebody listening, they're like, where do I start? Right. There's 2 places to start. One is why am I here? And that's the Breaking Why and the Art of Why have a similar framework that starts with why am I here? Or you can start with the Love Your Weird, your choice. Love Your Weird starts with get honest. And get honest about the problem. I mean, some of us, the reason I started working on Love Your Weird, Peter, is because there's a lot of people that weren't even quite ready to go to the Breaking Why or start with, the Art of Why. They weren't at that spot yet. Love Your Weird is about the prequel, if you will, to
Pretty
these
much.
books. Yeah, because I mean, look, my wife now read my books and like she was like, I don't know how to relate to some of this. And so, and I was like, what are you talking about? This is simple concepts. You know what I'm saying? It's all right there. It's not, it's heavy duty. And so if the work is hard, like welcome to the club. I mean, it's hard work. And sometimes we got to do some work before the work. And the first step always is like, dude, am I being honest with myself? Am I really being honest with myself about like what's not working? Because that's if you can't figure out what you want to do, let's start with what's not working first. You know what I mean? Let's get honest, because this game, of growth and transformation and even success, it has a lot more to do with what you're going to get rid of than it does adding stuff. It's a lot less to do with adding a bunch of crap. It's a lot more about let's inventory what we got to get rid of. And you know what? That might be limiting beliefs. That might be resentments. That might be a relationship. I don't know. It might be the way you show up at a relationship, but something has to give. Because if you want to soar, I always say it's kind of like a hot air balloon. The old school hot air balloons had those sandbags. You don't throw those bags off, it ain't going nowhere. So you got to start identifying and inventorying, what are the sandbags that I got to just let go of.
See, that's why with your, the whole thing with, embracing your weird and all, that's early when you're everything is still bright. As you get older, things start accumulating.
Loving your weird is about re-unlocking all that. Yeah.
Yeah. And because again, now we're going down like the 6-step relearn patience and persistence, you're changing course, sticking with it. And then again, number 7, accept and adapt. A lot harder as you get older, because you're so used to doing.
Yeah, when we're young, we can adapt and accept. Every decade you get older, it gets way harder. But dude, these things are non-negotiable. Like if you want to grow, if you want to fulfill your purpose and and have a burning passion in your life, like these are the things that you have to be serious about embracing. And it's not easy. Nobody said it was easy. It's simple, but it's not easy.
Tell me something. How do you, on your number 8, it's like hack your failures, turn mistakes into opportunities. Give me a little example, because I was a little.
Well, first of all, sobriety.
Yeah.
I already told you how I turned that into something.
Not yet.
Divorce, turn that into love your weird movement.
Yeah.
Technology, business, even down to the granular, like in our business with bugs. We got to a point where in our old company, like bugs were this bad thing in a product or tech, right? You don't want to have bugs. Clients, users get freaked out. They come with pitchforks. We got to the point where we were like, we've got to reframe this because we're constantly living in fear. We're not developing better products. We're just so fearful about coming out with anything new because what if it's got a bug? We got to the point where we changed everything and we said, we're not only going to accept bugs and do something with them, we're going to celebrate them. So we got to the point where I didn't take the shots, but like people would actually take shots when they found a bug. We celebrate, and we created a culture of celebrating. And because once you find the problem, because again, failure is this word that like I put that in that title, but the truth is failure is not even something that is a bad thing. Like failure is such a gift. And it's also just part of the process. You think about like how many times people have to experiment and break things to get to a certain point. Like, I mean, even Thomas Edison broke 10,000 light bulbs, right? Well, if he'd have stopped at like 999, we might still not have light bulbs. We might still be burning candles right now.
Right.
I don't know. But what I can tell you is that like, that's a beat down. 10,000, that's a beat down. Luckily, we haven't had to have 10,000 beat downs that hard to get to that. Cause I mean, I would have definitely switched from light bulbs to like horse and buggy or something, after 5,000, I think myself. I don't know if I'd have made it to 10, but that's what it is. It's like, you look at anything, there's always a bunch of failure. And from that desperation, from that bottom is where we find our calling. And that doesn't mean you got to go race to the bottom to find your calling. You don't have to, but you got to get honest.
Yeah. But again, a lot of people, some people have the backbone for it, and some people just quit, and that's the difference. I said the only way I could fail is if I stop doing this show. There's no turning back. But you're number 10 over here, trying to get through this book for you because I know you got to go. Reconstruct yourself, and give back.
So that essentially is, exactly what we've been talking about. Once you go through the work, you get to a point where you have found some sort of success. Maybe that success is 6 months of sobriety, or maybe that success is you had a child, or you and with a child, you don't have a choice. You're going to be giving back, whatever it is, whatever you think success is. Maybe it's money. Like, who are you going to mentor? Who are you going to help? First you got to find people that can help you. You have to find people that can help you. You cannot do this alone. That's why step 5, we didn't mention it, but building a team, getting help and building a team where they help you. Yeah, that's fine. It's just as important as the 10th step where you become part of somebody else's team.
Right.
Because that's how you stay successful, stay happy, stay joyous, and stay free.
Gotcha. Okay. Look, I know we've taken time, but this is what always happens. I could do an easy 3-hour show.
Oh, look, I could stay here all night, but
you can't. That's the problem. Yeah. That's the thing. So the thing is, all right. So, Frankie Russo, Breaking Why, available on Amazon and all those places.
Of course, yeah, all the bookstores, Books A Million, Barnes and Nobles, where they even still have bookstores, but of course, Amazon, Google Books, anywhere you could get it. And my publishing company's Amplify Publishing, great company. But yeah, you can get access to anything you want from frankierusso.com, or just Google me, and I'm on all the major channels.
That was the next thing. So you do have a website, frankierusso.com, easy enough. And anybody can find Frankie Russo right there and contact and purchase, learn, give, share, all the above. Again, you're out of time, but I want to thank you. Is there let me just add, there's one thing, I promise I'll let you go. Is there anything you want to leave my audience and your audience with for the future? If you had anything last thing to say,
Yeah.
What would it be?
This is what I would say. Whatever you're going through right now, especially with it bumping into the holidays, whatever hardship that you're feeling, even if it's just on the inside and nobody even knows about it, just know, one, it's not going to last forever. But more importantly, just go easy on yourself and try to avoid comparing yourself to other people, because your weird is beautiful and it's all that matters. And essentially, the worst thing we can do is just be mean to ourselves. There's enough hate and meanness and pain out there. Let's not do it to ourselves.
Yeah, beating yourself up.
There you go. That's what.
Fair enough. All right, Frankie Russo, I love you. Thank you for being and taking the time and being on my show.
My pleasure, Peter. This was awesome.
Tell your wife thank you for me. But
I will.
One last look. Motivational speaker, mentor, entrepreneur, author. Go get his book and be waiting for his new one. But Frankie Russo right here, and go to his website. You can contact him and all that. Again, thank you for your time, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Peter. Talk to you soon.
Right. We will be talking. Thank you very much. All right. Last look. There you go. Right there. Right there. Time out. frankierusso.com. Right there. You go to his website and you can get that and get a hold of him. All the above. Let me take a sip. That was insightful. All right. Informative. Entertainment with a purpose. Woo. Smooth. All right, look, I hope you enjoyed listening to Frankie. This was a new one for me too, because I've heard about him, I've known, but I can't. It's hard to keep up with everybody, but I just, thanks to the way life worked, I was able to bring him to you because you are important to me. And remember, you are not alone. That's what we do here. So I hope you enjoyed it. Just want to remind you, shifting gears. I know we took more time, but we always do. Next week, November 22nd, make time, all right? We're going to talk about real life some more. Nicole's going to be on the show. Beautiful young lady who just has gotten lost in life, daddy issues, just trying to find herself. I've watched her for years. She's been on the show twice. Hard to get her to talk sometimes, but she does, and I appreciate that. And it'll be worth it. Again, she's coming of age. She's evolved. I want to check up on her progress and thank her. I mean, not thank her, and just congratulate her on, not just falling to the wayside and just giving up on life, because she's had a few problems. But she's going to be on the show Wednesday, November 22nd. That's Thanksgiving Eve, by the way. So spend it here with us. All right. Always great stuff coming on with us. Don't forget, there's well over 300 shows, almost 400 now. You can just find them on YouTube's or LinkedIn's, Facebook's, all the above. Please subscribe, Peter G Show, on YouTube or LinkedIn's, wherever you want. But just that way, in case I do get kicked off one of these platforms, they hate when I start talking current events. Whether you agree or disagree, all I ask is that you just listen. I'm just putting information out there. There's a lot of people who don't know one way or the other, and I put information out there. Use your brain. I have a lot of great, smart people on, in my audience, but I got some that they got the blinders on, and they'll take it to their death, unfortunately. But again, be open-minded. The more you know, the better off you are. And there's a lot going on in our world, and it's complicated. So pay attention. All right. Please subscribe. And if you don't have time to watch the show, you could easily just go to Google Peter G Show podcast, put an earbud in your ear. You can listen to one of the almost 400 shows. Just pick what you want, the topic you want. I mean, I got something out there for everybody, or I have something out there for everybody. Please do that. And again, I appreciate you taking the time. I know it's not easy. It's a long form show. It's not 10 minutes. And we have a lot of ground to cover on all these topics. So thank you from the bottom of my heart for supporting the Peter G Show. But do it by hitting the subscribe. Let people know that, there's people out there, because there are. And just be one of them. And finally, life is a bitch. It's tough. It takes a toll on you. All right. So please be kind. I know it's easy to get rattled. People after you, getting on you, all the above. You don't have to take a bunch of crap from people. You don't. But don't be an ass. Think before you speak. Take it from the number one guy who needs to think before he speaks. Before, when people poke you, you tend to bark. I get it. Just be kind. Life is so damn short, especially as you're getting older. And, smell the roses. Take a little time. All right? That's it. My name is Peter G. You're watching Life with Peter G, the Peter G Show, right here every Wednesday like clockwork, 6 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Central, and 9 p.m. on the East Coast. I deeply and truly appreciate you doing this. Spread the word. I actually make sense once in a while. A lot more times than I think. But if I don't make the sense, that's why I have guests on that are way better than me. So please pay attention. Take it. And you might know somebody who needs these topics. That's the whole purpose. You go, this is a great topic for so-and-so. All I want to do, if we can help one, we're one better. I sleep better too. I love you guys. So as always, I'll see you next week. And peace out.
Peter G Show, Peter G Show, divorced dad, single